Xanax behind me. Always hide it like this. There we go. Wait, Eve, what time is it over there? 7?
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. How's it, everybody? Um, yeah, so good morning to those in LA and good evening to those in South Africa and UK time. 6 o'clock in UK, I think, 7 o'clock in the evening in South Africa, and 10 o'clock in LA. So just waiting for a few more people to come in. Um, and if you
Oh,
want, drop in the chat where you're from. Yeah.
Theolin is on.
Hmm?
Theolin is on. We love that she's on.
I see
Uh,
little thumbs floating in the air.
Yeah.
There's little
At
thumbs
least it's
floating
the
in the air.
thumb.
Oh, and some hearts too.
Yeah. That's good. We
Uh,
got
Those those must be for you, Joseph.
I think those are from me to you, in fact. Maybe I'll just
Oh,
okay, guys, you
uh
can see how this is going to be. This is going to be awesome. Let's just give it one more minute for everyone to come in. And yeah.
could you
So
imagine that there's people out there that don't drink coffee in the morning? Isn't that weird?
I don't. I'm drinking.
You don't?
I'm drinking water. No, I don't drink coffee at all.
How do you move?
Cocaine.
I
Oh my God, speaking of, I just saw Bodies, Bodies, Bodies last night for the first time. And wild, wild. If you didn't see it, you should watch it. I mean, I'm very late to the party. I'm sure most people here have seen it, but it's
I
so
haven't
good.
seen it.
guys,
Yeah.
the chat is disabled. How do I make this abled? Ugh.
Somebody says they drink lemon juice. Yikes. Is that, I don't, okay. I would
Okay,
love
What's
to know.
that? You
well,
have
you
to
know
drink.
what, guys? I think we'll start, but just put the chat in the questions until I figure out. I don't know why it's disabled. It's very weird. But anyway, let's start. Let me just check here where I don't know why it's disabled. That's very bizarre. Um, Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Yeah, so a lot of you have are giving up some time, and hopefully it's going to be worthwhile. And so I don't think you guys need too much of an introduction to these guys, but for the sake of an intro, Christopher Lockhart is the story editor of WME. And he has literally read over about 4 years ago, Chris, I think it was over 60,000 scripts. So I don't know what you're sitting at now. Do you count?
I stopped counting. It was just too depressing.
And Chris represents many, many people in WME looking for scripts for the likes of Denzel Washington, Richard Gere, all kinds of peoples. And then Joey is the CEO of Roadmap Writers, and he is a stalwart in getting representation for screenwriters. It's just incredible. I don't think there is another person on the planet who has helped screenwriters get representation like you have, Joey. What are we sitting on now? Almost 400, or have you hit the 400?
Well, not yet, not yet. 392, 392. By the way, this is such a full circle moment because I told Chris when I saw him last month in person that I've been so intimidated by Chris Lockhart for many years. And I'm still intimidated, but now I'm getting more familiar with my feelings towards intimidation. So I'm very excited to be here.
No, I'm really privileged to have both of you guys here. So
And we
um
have both been to South Africa
We have both been to South Africa.
at
Thanks, Eve.
at different times, but yeah.
Also, just because somebody already mentioned it, I promise I'm not going to try to get anybody to adopt a dog. But if you live in Los Angeles and you want to adopt a dog, email me,
I was
please.
gonna say I think you've helped like a lot more dogs get homes than you have
Yeah,
screenwriters.
a lot more.
And
So, yeah, but we're excited to be here.
cool. So let's get into some questions. So Joey, I thought I'd start with you. I know that you work with a lot of writers and you help them perfect their pitches. And I thought maybe I'll start with this question because you actually suggested this theme. And I wanted to know, like, what is it about the pitching that you feel is so important?
Yeah, well, I feel like, there's so many classes and programs that teach the pitch, like how to format the pitch and, what kind of things to put in the pitch. But I haven't seen, I do think it's just as important to be able to connect with the exec before and after the pitch. And I always talk about the story that years ago I was working with this writer named Frank Ponce, and I set him up at a meeting with Atlas Entertainment that did like Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman. And he connected so well with the exec before the pitch that when the exec said, okay, pitch me your story, and Frank did, the exec said, that's not right for us, but what else do you have? Frank pitched this other idea. He didn't even have the rights to it. It was an Evel Knievel biopic. And the exec loved it. They worked together. They got the rights. They wrote the script. Universal bought it. McGee was attached to direct it. And USA was going to make it into a miniseries. And the start date was March 12th, 2020, which is the day LA closed down for COVID. But I tell that story because if Frank wasn't able to engage with the exec before, after the pitch, the exec would have been like, okay, great. Thank you so much. Bye. But the exec wanted him to stay in the room, and then that happened. So I just think it's really important to know what to do before and after the pitch as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like the thing is, I know that you have heard many, many pitches. And Chris, you have heard a lot of pitches, but both from very different points of view. So, Joey, your goal is to connect managers with writers, writers with managers, and Chris, you want to find scripts. So, Chris, maybe tell us about like your sort of process with pitching. I know you've listened to a lot in the Inside Pitch, but how does it go in the industry?
Yeah. So it's different, obviously, what I'm doing here than what Roadmaps does. And I think, generally speaking, I think one of the biggest differences is that when people come to pitch here, they're not coming to pitch a screenplay that they've already written. Typically, they're pitching ideas. And when you're sort of outside of going into studios, because when writers go into studios, they're not pitching screenplays that they've already written, because if they're in the room, the execs have already read those screenplays. That's how they got in the room to begin with. So there tends to be a little bit of a different approach in that. So, for example, on the Inside Pitch, which is my Facebook group, or and Roadmaps, writers are pitching to execs, and they're often pitching scripts that they've already written in an effort to get somebody to read the script. And so I think that tends to be the biggest difference. That doesn't mean that if there are people in my office that are pitching ideas that they won't say, oh, wait, like I wrote a screenplay 9 years ago, and then they pitch it. But primarily they're pitching ideas rather than completed work.
And so Chris, you always advocate for log lines. Okay. So are these people who come, these writers that come to pitch to you, are they already like in the system, or are they potentially people that you've picked up from queries or something like that?
Well, this isn't a free clinic, so it's not like you can just walk in off the street and pitch. But for the most part, the majority of the people who come into the office are people that are pretty well established, because I'm working with established people. I'm working with Denzel. I'm working with Rachel McAdams. I'm working with Nicolas Cage, Bill Skarsgård. So I'm working with people that are very, very well established. And they're often looking to work with people who are established. If you look at Denzel's filmography, look at the directors that he's worked with. You know, he hasn't worked with a first-time director in, you know, in an incredibly long time. You know, he's worked with Spike Lee. You know, he's working with Antoine Fuqua. You know, he worked with Senior Moment, the director of Nightcrawler, on his sophomore movie. Tony Gilroy?
Yeah.
I get the Gilroys confused. Maybe it's Dan Gilroy. Yeah, so I'm definitely kind of playing in a sandbox with people that are pretty well established. That doesn't mean that, you know, I don't meet with the other people. But, you know, the truth is that you really, like, can you really differentiate between what I do in my Facebook group and what I do here in my office? Because the truth is that if you're pitching to me, whether it's at the inside pitch or you're pitching to me in my office, you're pitching to me.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's good to know, because it's interesting. Well, I mean, it's good to know because we want to know what hat you've got on. You know what I mean? So it is to you as Chris.
You know, look, I'm in my office on a Saturday morning. The hat never comes off. That's the truth. The hat doesn't come off. So
yeah, later
you know,
you're going to have to tell us a few things behind you there. But in the
a little tour.
Joey, so from your perspective, okay, so you listen to so many pitches. I want to ask, like, if you what are you listening for? Like, if you've got a pitch that is you know, given to you, what is it that is the biggest thing that you're looking for, and also what is the biggest surprise of a pitch that you've ever experienced? Like, we all know there's a formula, right? And the formulas are amazing. Oh, and for everyone on this call, Joey has actually kindly provided one, and I will attach it at the end just for the people who are attending live. So what is the biggest surprise that you have experienced in a pitch that's kind of taken it to another level?
Well, I'll say this before I even answer that, and I promise I'm not going to just suck up to Chris this whole time, but when I saw Chris, this is just like a testament of how well he constructs stories. When I saw Chris at his office a month ago, I was telling him what I do with animal rescue, and he literally created a script idea off of just what I do in like 5 seconds. Like, hey, it starts with this, and the break into act 2 is this. I was like, oh my God, that's actually genius. So I just thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so what I look for in scripts, so what I do at Roadmap, if you don't know who I am, so like we train writers, we have execs come in and train writers, but what I'm always looking for are writers that I feel can be set up with meetings with execs, get their stuff to execs, to reps. Like Eve just said earlier, we just had our 392nd writer signed. So what I'm looking for is like the whole package. I'm looking for writers who have a portfolio. I'm looking for writers, and I think this is the most important thing, with something interesting to say. So start going back to like how you start your pitch, a little anecdote about what influenced you to write this. Why are you the perfect person to write the story, without actually saying I'm the perfect person to write the story because of XYZ, but a little bit about you as a human self and how that influences your writing and your personal log line. So for me, that's sometimes even more interesting than the actual pitch, because the chances of you pitching your script to somebody and then being like, yes, I want to make it immediately is beyond slim. So it's about building relationships. It's about the exec being like, wow, that's so interesting. We don't have room in our slate right now, or the industry is going through a weird time, so we're not necessarily looking right now. But we'd love to consider you for other things, or especially for reps. I set up a meeting with a writer after I read a script. I sent it to a management company that I'm obsessed with, and they read it. They wanted to meet him, and they set a Zoom up, and with full intent of signing him. And in the meeting, and then after the meeting, the manager called me up and said, we're not going to sign this writer because we weren't able to lean into him. We weren't able to really know he wasn't able to articulate what makes him different than everybody else. What's his perspective into writing? Even though the writer knew that, but he got, I think, maybe just a little nervous or whatever, and wasn't able to articulate it. But to me, that's what I'm looking for in pitches, a unique lens into why the story is familiar, but what's your stamp on it? What's your perspective into it? So that's what I'm always looking for as well. And also, too, I know we'll talk about this later, just normal, lovely, charismatic people and not robots. Like just people that are like have hobbies outside of writing, people that are well-rounded. To me, that's what I'm always looking for.
So
Well,
that
it's
yeah.
a job interview. I'm sorry, Eve. It's a job interview in many ways, you know, and so that's the way you need to approach it. And I have read scripts. I'm like, wow, this script is amazing. And then I bring in the writer, and it's the fucking Unabomber, you know, and I'm like, you know, like I can't present this guy to anybody here. You know, I'd be like run out of the business because for the exact reasons that Joey said, it's like, you know, you're going to be, as a writer, you're going to be working with a team of people. And if you're not communicative, or you're just, you know, an oddball, or you're just somebody who maybe doesn't get along with people, it's like, they're going to say, there's like a trillion other writers out there. You know, why do we have to wrestle with this guy?
Absolutely. So true. And okay, no, everybody don't cancel me when I say this, but I'm just going to say it. It's Saturday. I haven't had my coffee fully yet. So I'm just going to be a little bit more maybe filterless than usual. But that's why I don't understand so much the ideology of people on social media being like, I just got a 4 on the blacklist, fuck the blacklist. And this is, I'm like, how is that helping your cause? If I was an exec doing some research about you, I would be like, this person seems a little angry. Like, what if I like give notes on this writer's script? Are they going to like publicly blast me on social media?
Right.
So it is really about like, to Chris's point, there's so many writers out there. So if they think that you're going to be a problem, they'll just go to the next.
Absolutely.
So
And
let's
if I
flip
may,
that on
Eve,
its
I'm
head.
sorry, but
Yeah, say.
somebody just dropped the word introvert. I saw that float up on the
Lauren.
screen. And so look, you know, clearly writing tends to be an introverted art form anyway. But being an introvert doesn't mean, you know, that you have to be a wallflower or that you can't communicate. So you know, I'm not asking anybody to come in here and, you know, like dance on a pole for me. I'm asking you to come in and be able to talk about story and appear passionate and appear educated. So I'm not saying that one has to be an extrovert, but so let's use the word passion instead, because I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I want to see from people. You know, I I want to see passion. I want to see that people are that other people will be able to look up to the writer, because really that's, you know, like you're bringing in a writer many times to be a problem solver,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
You know, it's like, let's say that we're having issues with the script maybe, and because like Joey said, so many of these pitch meetings, they're not about you selling your script. That's really not what they're about at all. They're really about you meeting people in the business, forging relationships. And what that executive is hoping is that maybe sometime in the future, you're going to be able to help them out somehow, some way, maybe with a script or maybe with their own script. Maybe you're going to come in and do a rewrite on something. That's really what it's about. So you need to think less about selling your script and more about selling yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, exactly. So if we just flip that on its head, right? So say you get Joey, you brought up like the amazing script and you thought they were going to get signed, and anyway, that didn't work out. What if you have a mediocre script, but an off the charts personality, and you know that they're going to connect with the manager? How do you face that kind of dilemma? Because I'm sure it happens quite a lot.
I think for me, it's like the definition of mediocre. Is it that the writing is mediocre, or is that this particular script is mediocre? If their writing is mediocre, then it doesn't matter if they can pitch in 94 languages. The script, they're just not at the level yet to be going in front of reps. But if it's mediocre because I didn't feel like, and by the way, when I say I'm like, I'm definitely the lowest person on the totem pole, so don't take my word as gospel. But when I say like, when I hear feedback from execs, is like, maybe it's just not their voice. Maybe they're writing something because they thought they want to write a horror script because that'll help them get their script made faster, or they're writing something that's so outside of themselves because they think that's what people are looking for. And then I'll be like, okay, the script doesn't feel like the one to lead with. Well, what else do you have? And then if they have like 6 things, I'm sure there's maybe a couple of things. Well, maybe I'm not sure, but like hopefully there's 2 things in there that I'm like, oh, you should definitely lead with this one. This is so your voice. This is definitely you. So it's really a definition of mediocre. If the script writing ability is mediocre, then unfortunately at that point, there's nothing I could do, no matter how good they are in a room. But if they are just mediocre in terms of finding their voice, but when they do find their voice, they could write something above mediocre, then that's different. But a mediocre script is just there's really nothing you could do with a mediocre script.
So, I mean, so from your perspective, there's a chance, like somebody writes something, and there is a chance that their personality can also kind of edge them a little bit forward, depending. I mean, that it's not.
I guess. Okay, I'm going to compare this to RuPaul's Drag Race because I love RuPaul's Drag Race. In RuPaul's Drag Race, there's a competition, and then there's a challenge, and there's a runway. So the challenge is the script, the runway is the pitch. You could have a good challenge, and if your runway is amazing, then you might be on the top for that week. If your challenge is mediocre, and your runway is also mediocre, you're not going to be on the top that week. But the pitch could help make the executive want to like keep you around a little longer, or maybe like ask you more questions. But honestly, it's like if the script isn't good, or if your script is even mediocre, especially now where the industry is so like constricting and there's just so few opportunities for so many writers, that it really does start with the script more than anything. You have to have a solid script. You have to have something that is bold, off from center, something a little different, something just that embodies your voice and what you bring to the table as a human.
You know, in the old days, you could have a mediocre script. You could have a script that had this amazing concept, but the execution was mediocre. But the studio might, they might buy it for $750,000 and just bring another writer onto it. They don't do that stuff anymore. There's no more development. They're really looking at scripts that are much, much farther along. In the old days, studios, they would buy, 50, 60 screenplays a year, each studio. And then they would develop them all and hope that maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 of those became movies. They don't do that anymore.
So Chris, is that a lot then? Or,
that was a lot, but well, look, I mean, like if you go back to the earliest days, like back in the studio system, like the 1930s, each studio turned out 200 movies a year. Now Hollywood hardly turns out that many movies a year in total. So just through time, the output of films has gotten smaller and smaller. But now where we're at, there's no more development. In fact, the amount of spec scripts that sell a year are minimal compared to how many scripts sold 10 years ago. A friend of mine just sent me an email the other day and said, hey, could you give me a list of spec scripts that sold this year? And I stopped to think about it, and I was like, I'm not even sure what script sold, because the truth is that when you read in Deadline that this script sold, sometimes it isn't even a sell, it's an option. But they just use the word sell just to try to hype things up. I had to reach out to my friend Ramesh, who always seems to know all of this information. And, and like, I'm working at the largest talent agency in the world, and I'm reaching out to Ramesh. Hey, what script sold in the last year? And he sent me, I don't know, a list of maybe about 12 or 13. That's hardly a lot of screenplays. And again, I still say that some of those were probably options, meaning that, you know, nobody's getting a whole lot of money on them. They're not really sales.
Well, I sincerely hope that some of them were, you know, from a great pitch, because else it's just really sad. But you know, we all live in hope. It's why we get out of bed every day, because there's always that slim chance. So maybe let's talk about some specifics. The obvious things to do before a pitch is prepare. Okay. But what would you say would be an outstanding thing that's happened, maybe that you've observed in a pitch that becomes apparent, that maybe other writers potentially haven't done before a pitch? Is there anything?
You go first, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that you know, to be honest, I've not really broken this down, you know, so like I couldn't teach some kind of pitch, you know, like a system or something like that. I just know when I'm in the presence of a good storyteller. That's all, you know, because I'm sitting back and they're telling their story in a way that's clear and concise and engaging, and I'm formulating all kinds of questions, and I can be annoying sometimes and interrupt a pitch and say, well, how come they're doing that? Or, you know, what's this about? And they'll be able to answer those questions and then just get right back on track. I think for me, the most important thing about a pitch is that it needs to be a two-way street. To me, the best pitches that I've ever experienced are conversations, as opposed to a lecture. You know, I think that we are a little bit sort of in a place now, especially, you know, in these forums, even like, you know, the forums that I might do sometimes, or like at Roadmap, where you kind of stand up and you present yourself to somebody and you talk straight for 6 minutes, and then somebody gives you feedback. Like in my world, that's not really the way my pitches work, because I'll be fast asleep in like 3 minutes, you know, unless the person is amazingly charismatic. For me, you know that I'm engaged in the pitch when I'm asking you questions, or I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Does the character do this? And they'll say, no, the character does that. And I'm, well, you know, I don't know if that's as interesting as that. And then, you know, a conversation brews from there. To me, that is where I find myself most engaged, where a pitch becomes a conversation rather than a lecture.
I mean, that, you know, that is obviously the goal for most writers, is to be able to have the opportunity to have that open discussion. And I love the simplicity of it. You said it, like, it's just in the storytelling. But then, Joey, when you listen to a lot of pitches, there's a massive time constraint, and a writer needs to capture that story and the audience in a very short space of time. So, and I guess it's completely the opposite. It has to be fairly formulaic, because else you're not going to hit all the key points. What is your kind of, you know, the benefit of maybe having, because there's two sides. What's the benefit of maybe having it succinct and formulaic?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We do a couple of things. One is, and like in the more formulaic side, it's like, especially people that are nervous, or maybe like maybe newer to pitching, or I mean, just anybody. I'm sure a lot of people get nervous pitching, but it's having that structure to ground them when they're pitching. So in case they can't just pitch off the cuff and they can't pitch conversationally, they can fall back on the structure to really know, like, okay, when's to break into act two? When am I going to inject? Like if it's a horror film, what's the scariest moment of act two, to really like have somebody lean into them. So I think at those points, the structures are really good. I also feel like in terms of like how to capture a person's attention, knowing that when you're pitching to an exec, even if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, whatever, they might have heard already 10 pitches that day. They've read 3 scripts, or they've heard 30 different stories. So by the time you're pitching, their mind is already like flooded with all these stories. That your job as a writer is to be able to make your intro, your introduction so visceral, so interesting that they forget about the previous person. That they're like, wait, what did you go through? Or wait, what is your connection to the story? That's really interesting. So they're not thinking about the previous person. It's all eyes on you. We also started doing something recently at Roadmap, where anybody who got signed through our programs, we invite them to all these free Zoom roundtables with execs, producers, showrunners, just to get them like more of like a competitive edge, because it's, again, so hard out there. And so what we do there is have an intro about themselves, about who they are, what their brand is, what they bring to the table, and then just a log line of their project, and then they ask a question. So that's more conversational because it's not so much formulaic. And I think both sides have proven successful. But nothing beats a strong intro, in my opinion, because if you don't capture their attention from the beginning, they're not going to be paying attention fully. They're going to be thinking about, okay, what can I talk about after the pitch? Because I'm not interested. I'm thinking about the previous person. I've lost focus. They're halfway through the pitch. I'm not even listening anymore. And now I'm completely not connected to their story. So that visceral opening is everything.
Yeah, because I think a lot of writers sometimes maybe want to save the best till last, but it definitely sounds like put that up front.
Yeah. Sometimes in these formulaic pitches, they'll often start with the writer talking about their connection to the material, what their inspiration was. Now that can be hard if you're writing like Transformers, but you can still find some way to make it personal, even if you have to make it up, by the way. I'm not this is showbiz. So sure, it's like if you've written a drama and, well, this was really inspired by the 9 years of caregiving my grandmother who died 2 years ago. That there's an obvious connection there. And it's an emotional connection, which is the best kind of connection that you can offer. Like I would say, if your script dealt in that realm and you were never a caregiver, lie.
You're not the first, but Joey, I remember listening to a webinar that you did with, I can't remember his first name, Nick Peppers. Okay.
Yeah.
And he said the exact same thing. He's like, just lie, just make up a story that, of how you connected. And
you're fucking storytellers. So create a story if you have to.
That gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, what happens if you get caught out? And
you
then
get caught. They'll do their research, they'll do reference checks. Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess it depends.
Yeah, that will never happen. First of all, remember that 99.9999999% of all pitches, die right there. And you need to do whatever you can do to step things up. Look, I wouldn't, if you've written a script about the president, I wouldn't say, well, I was the 5th president of the United States. You obviously want to be judicious in your lying. But again, this is show business. So, do what you need to do to capture your audience.
Okay. Cool.
I also just want to say this too, because Meg Laveau, who's going to the Screenwriting Safari, mentioned this too when we were there. And I thought it was so clear that just because you have a connection to the story doesn't mean that this is a memoir, doesn't mean that the story is a small coming of age story. It can be set against the backdrop of something big. And I think, especially nowadays, people really aren't looking for like the indie small dramas, the self-reflective, like all that stuff. So your connection to the story doesn't necessarily have to be like, this is my life. But it could be like, this is a big story, but the universal theme is about a guy trying to save his family from, whatever. And this is why I connect with that. So it doesn't have to be against the backdrop of something small. And in fact, sometimes it's more interesting when it's against the backdrop of something big, because you're like, okay, so maybe I don't get all the explosions and stuff, but like this is what we're following. This is like the heart of the story, which I think is always compelling.
Yeah, and remember that there's always a little bit of the writer in whatever it is that they're writing. So I could say, well, this story was inspired by my divorce. My wife and I spent 9 years together, and then sadly the relationship ended. I really wanted to try to rekindle it, but she had moved on. And so my screenplay maybe is a little bit of a fantasy, and it's called Die Hard.
Well, you certainly get someone's attention, I guess.
So there you go. So it's not that hard. I just saw that Suzanne said, "Don't lie about cancer." Yeah, again, you want to pick your lies very carefully, and you are embellishing. Look, everybody embellishes when they tell stories. They might embellish a little bit just to make things a little more exciting. I just mean, like, you're at a party and you're telling a story to your friends and you might embellish it. But at any rate, yeah, I think just kind of starting that formulaic pitch off with sort of what inspired you to write it. And it should be something that's personal and hopefully emotional. Even if you've written Die Hard.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Jane Grisanti, who's obviously going to be a mentor at Screenwriters Safari, that's what she bleats on about all the time. She tells us to do it. And I mean, I know it's a very
She tells you to do what? To
speak your emotional truth. You don't need to like tell the exact story, but to speak.
Well, why are you writing screenplays? It's like I read a screenplay because I want to be moved emotionally. This is art, right? To me, art is not an intellectual exercise. To me, art is an emotional exercise. You are ultimately trying to move people. That doesn't mean that it can't be smart and that it can't be intellectual and that you cannot also appeal to that. But for me, when I'm looking at a screenplay, I'm looking at, first and foremost, what is the emotional appeal to this? Because that's art.
No, for sure. I mean, let's go into the latest.
One quick thing. In terms of, it was going back to introverts. A few people were talking about introverts. I just want to quickly say that last year I read a script, and it was honestly one of the best scripts I've ever read. It was so amazing. I was crying. I was laughing. I was furious. I was inspired. I mean, every emotion. And there was really just two people in the script, two characters, like very, very few supporting characters, and like one or two locations. And when I talked to the writer, he was very soft-spoken. He wasn't like, hey, here's my script and this is why I wrote it. But it connected to like his sophistication. Like he was able to so clearly and eloquently explain why he wrote it. So to Chris's point, you don't have to be dancing and doing cartwheels when you're talking about yourself. Sometimes that's a way for the exec to be like, okay, this person might be a little cuckoo. So that's don't worry if you're an introvert. Like, come in and just know who you are.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I believe is. I mean, I've actually got a script that I love, and I was apparently an ancestor of this particular person, and that's how I pitched it, and that's how so many people fell in love with it. Then I went to Ireland, did some research, and realized not the case. And everyone, because I wanted to be honest, I told everyone, and nobody wanted to listen to the truth. They liked the other story. So, that's how it rolls. But there was a question here that I wanted to talk about. Christine actually asked it about portfolios, and maybe just to talk about that. Joey, so you obviously deal with managers, and I assume, or you must tell me if that's not true, that they have particular genres that they are looking for. And if you have a writer that maybe that they would connect with that person as a person, but not necessarily have a script in that genre, how would you deal with that? Would you kind of stick to the brief, or would you try and connect them?
I probably wouldn't, because it would probably be a waste of everybody's time. And because if they're like looking for comedies and somebody's so talented and as a person, as a writer, and they just write horrors, I don't know. I don't know why I would introduce them to that person. Though nowadays I feel like mandates are changing so fast that a year ago everybody was looking for TV, and now a lot of managers that were reaching out to me looking for TV are being like, actually, TV is too hard right now. We're looking for features. So I think things are changing, and sometimes, I mean, I think most managers are a little bit eclectic. It's not. I mean, it happens, of course, but it's rare that an exec's like a manager's like, I just want comedy writers because they can only have so many comedy writers in their roster. But sometimes they have so many comedy writers, so they're not looking for another comedy writer, looking for whatever a different genre. So I probably wouldn't connect them if they're not specifically looking for that genre. Um, yeah, but knowing what execs are looking for is to me the very important because obviously I want to find them the right things. And sometimes I've seen it where a rep might not think they're looking for something, but then they read the script and it's so compelling and the writer's so interesting that they decide to take the person on because this person convinced them. And I do think sometimes you don't know what you want until it's in front of you at times because somebody can influence somebody to change their mind depending on how amazing their script is. But going back to the portfolio, something that I've seen too many times is where a writer and anytime I go to like a writer event, nearly every question I get is, how do I get a manager? How do I get a manager? And when I ask them, well, tell me about your portfolio. I mean, like, I would say like 6 times out of 10, they're like, well, I have one script. I'm working on a second one, or I have a bunch of ideas. I haven't written a script yet. And it's like, well, this is a non-starter conversation because you need at least like 3 scripts to get a manager or an agent's attention. So with the portfolio, in my opinion, everybody has different opinions, is that I would suggest writers to write a couple of scripts in the same genre or subgenre. So it doesn't have to be the same kind of comedy, but maybe one's like a regular comedy, the other one's a horror comedy, because a manager does want to see consistency. So if I send them a comedy script and they like it and they want to read something else, and then I send them Saw, they're gonna be like, oh wow, this is so different than what I'm looking for. And the reason why I chose to read the script is because I'm looking for this type of writer. And now this is too now they're diluting their brand a little bit. So I'm a believer that stay in your lane at the beginning, especially now because it's so hard. Be known for one thing. So when that assignment comes up, it's undeniable that you're the person that should get that. But yeah, definitely have about 3 things in your portfolio and a bunch of ideas before approaching reps.
Well, Hannah, I hope that answered your question as well. So, Chris, from your perspective, do you, in the industry, is there a general kind of trend that kind of goes towards specific genres, or would certain companies look at a strategy for genres, or is it purely about trying to find scripts for talent?
Well, if you're talking about a production company, certain production companies tend to perhaps make certain kinds of movies, right? So like Blumhouse, for example, makes a very specific kind of film within a certain kind of budget. And so if you're sending them some kind of period rom-com, it's probably not a good use of your time. Agencies are different because, agencies are just, they're looking for anything that they can sell, anything that they can sell. And the really good agencies like the one that I work at, it isn't even really just about looking for things that they can sell. It's about creating opportunities. So I think a lot of people don't really understand what good agents do, that everybody's thinking about the agent that, is like chomping on a cigar, I'm going to make you a star, kid. But really good reps are doing more than just trying to sell your work. They are, if they have the means at their disposal, like we do at WME, they are creating opportunities. They are literally in-house brainstorming potential ideas for clients. So, you're at home and you're writing a screenplay and your agent is thinking perhaps even outside of the box for you. And that's really where I think a lot of the surprise in careers comes in. So I think that when you are looking for a rep, I think, first of all, people are so excited to get a rep. And okay, so like you get a rep, you know something? It doesn't always mean that much. I'm sure that, even Joey can speak to that. It's, okay, great. So you have a rep. Most of the time, I know being a little bit of a downer, but most of the time it's kind of like, having a new significant other. It's really exciting and wonderful. And then, 3, 4, 5 months later, you've broken up and, you're moving on. Very, very few people stay with the same rep for their entire career. And so I think people tend to jump at the first rep that's interested. You're like the wallflower at the prom, and the very first person who asks you to dance, you're up on your feet. And maybe at the prom, that's okay, but that's not always the wisest way to go. I think that a lot of writers feel, well, gee, like I haven't gotten very many offers and this person is interested. But there's a lot to consider when you're going to sign with a rep. A lot to consider. And I also think it's important to remember that you're the boss, that the rep works for you. It's not the other way around. And I think that so many writers go into that relationship in almost a subservient way. Like, oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for signing me. And that's not the way it really is. I can tell you that when you get to where I'm at and you're working with the clients that are at my level, that's not the way they operate. No way, no way in hell are they operating that way. So that doesn't mean that you should ever be a dick, but it's a relationship, it's a relationship. And just like if you're looking for a significant other and you go on that first date and you're, sniffing each other's butts, if I can use an analogy that is familiar to Joey, not that Joey sniffs butts, but just that it is a canine reference. And although I don't really know what Joey does, but just in regards to his canines. So that's really how it should be with a rep. And you want to know, like, how are they going to represent you? What is their plan for you? If they have other writers on their roster that are similar to you, how will they differentiate you? I mean, there's 1,000 questions that you could ask, but writers aren't thinking that. They're just like, oh boy, I can't wait, until I can post on X that I have a manager. And the truth is that for people like me, I'm unimpressed because I know what it means, because I've been in this business for 35 years. So, I can really look back on things. I know what that means. It doesn't mean anything unless you have the right manager. And so it's really about taking your time and making sure that you click and knowing what that manager is going to do for you, and that it is a partnership, that ultimately they don't make money until you make money.
So, I mean, that's awesome, because you two are from kind of different perspectives. But Joey, I don't want to put you on the spot, and you wouldn't have these numbers at your fingertips, but just from a gut feel, out of everybody that you have assisted in getting, you and Roadmap have assisted getting representation, what percentage would you roughly say do the writers and the managers stick together in reality?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like so Jess Carson, for example, she was one of the first writers we got signed or helped get signed. We introduced her to Echo Lake, and that was 7 years ago, and she's still with that manager, and he got her first staffing job on The Flash. She's been staffed for 3 or 4 seasons on The Flash, and sometimes it lasts a month. Sometimes they're like, okay, this actually isn't the right fit, and for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the writer goes in with on kind of expectations that aren't realistic, or sometimes the manager ends up leaving the industry, or sometimes it's just not a good fit. But I think to Chris's point is that one thing that I get a lot of when people are looking for managers is to say, okay, I just want to write. So I want to find a manager so I could just write. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, well, that's not, the manager is not going to be the one to be like, hey, I'll do all the work for you in terms of like setting up meetings and getting you assignments, and you just sit in your house and write. That's certainly not the way it works. So it is, that's why we started doing these free networking Zooms, because getting signed is great. I mean, specifically when you have a manager that really works for you, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. You always have to be creating opportunities. You always have to be meeting people and networking, because writing is just one piece of the puzzle. So I definitely agree. Like, you have to do your research. You have to ask the right questions. Here, this is what I want as a writer. How can you help me achieve that? These are the type of companies I want to get in front of. Do you have connections to those companies? But and also I'll say this too. Some of our biggest success stories, like one of our writers, we introduced him to a manager a year ago. 4 months later, he set up his project at Churnin, and it just got set up on Netflix, and it was through his manager. And so that was, and it was a period piece, by the way. So you would say like, oh wow, period pieces don't sell, but there is an example. But it's really about finding the right manager for you and being able to ask those questions. And doing your due diligence, ask around. But no, this is what I was going to say, is that some of our biggest success stories are from writers who are rep by more of the boutique companies, the boutique management companies, because those managers usually are hungrier. Those managers have something to prove. Those managers are sometimes paycheck to paycheck, so they really have to have their clients work, especially for up and coming writers. So we definitely like don't, if it's a manager that's just a one person manager or more of a boutique company, don't just throw them off because like, oh, it's not 3 Arts or it's not whatever. Because I will say some of our biggest success stories is from that. I also want to just call somebody out really quickly in a good way. I just want to say Sandy Kelleher is here, and she recently adopted a dog from us that was trapped in a U-Haul in a cage. And Sandy, I love you so much. I just saw your name. I just wanted to say that. And now the dog is living his best life poolside. So Sandy, I just want to say you're amazing. But yeah, sorry.
No,
let me jump on something that Joseph just said, which I think is really, really, really important. And that is that when you get your rep, you don't kick back. You don't say, okay, I don't need to network anymore because my rep is going to do all of that for me. In fact, I would say it's the complete antithesis. I would say now you have to kick it up even into a higher gear, because now you actually have an intermediary. Now you actually have somebody. And so you need to be out there doing that legwork, finding those opportunities that then you can take to your manager. And then that manager will be able to figure out how to exploit that opportunity that you brought to them. That is so important, because I just think that one reason why a lot of these relationships don't work is because the writer just assumes that the manager is going to do all the work. This is a business about relationships. You have to be networking. And I know that that might be a little bit tough if you're living in like Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and you're not in Los Angeles. But there are ways now to connect. You can connect with people in the business on X, on Facebook, like in my group, or on Roadmap Writers, or in the Screenwriting Safari group, or going on the Screenwriting Safari. You know, whatever that is, whatever fits your schedule or your budget, there are a million ways for you to be meeting people in this business and meeting like-minded people in this business. Form a writing group, you know, create an online writing group. It doesn't cost any money. And you can do that. And the truth is that when you're with like-minded people, you can now share your connections. You can watch one person, you know, grow and maybe help you, maybe not necessarily pull you along, but like if you're looking for a particular script to read, that person's in the business, they might have access to that. Or maybe they can introduce you to the manager. But if you're trying to do this all by yourself, forget it. I don't care how good your stuff is. Forget it.
And I want to piggyback too. It's like one of the best pieces of advice when I first came out here, because when I first came out here, I was like, I have to befriend Kevin Houvain. I have to befriend Ryan Lord. Like those are like the top of the top. And I'm like, I want to like befriend those people. But it's really like, and somebody said, okay, stop that. And also like your goal, what you should be doing is making relationships and connections with people on your level, people that you're growing with, because those people are going to be in the trenches with you. Those people, once they succeed a little bit, those are the people that could actually help you because their connections are more attainable than, the top of the food chain. So I think, yeah, making a writers group is a really good idea.
Yeah. So it's 5 to 8. We're probably going to go a bit over, but there's a question here that I just wanted to talk about, and I know it's a hot topic in the industry. It's from Yunona. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. What do you find more appealing in the scripts, an original and promising idea, or the one that is already proved to sell? IP, people, tell us the truth. What is going on?
Well, let me just quickly say, I see people wanting to join a writers group, and I think that's great. But I will say we're not responsible for any weirdness that happens in a writers group that starts here. We're not vetting all these people. So do it at your own risk. If you don't know them, ask them questions. But Chris, so proven or
IP.
yeah.
Essentially, that's what this is about. Like,
I
when people listen to pitches at this moment in time, are they kind of prefaced and they're like looking for previous, stuff that's proven or new stuff?
Look, let me just say this again. I could say this over and over again. Nobody really wants to hear it. Like, I get it, but I'm going to say it over again anyway, which is this. Forget about trying to sell your script. All right. What you are trying to do is when you're pitching, you are trying to let somebody know that you're a good writer, that you know what you're talking about, that you're confident. Then when they read your script, they'll say, wow, this is a great script. And they'll want to work with you. And maybe that will mean that they will try to package you into some other project, that they will find IP for you to write. This is what good management does. So the idea that your spec script isn't based on IP, it doesn't really matter. I think that like the majority of the scripts that sold in the last year, that I don't think any of them were based on IP. So so like it's if you're selling a spec script, you probably don't have IP. Oh sure, maybe it's like a book of poetry that your aunt wrote. But, it's not like you have the IP to a John Grisham novel that like anybody's going to care about. So this whole idea of IP is like, sure, great. Like, if it's IP that was like a bestseller or something that everybody on the planet knows, then that's valuable IP. But if it's like, well, I wrote a novel in my intro to writing class back in 1984. So I based my screenplay on that. So, that's my IP. No, that's not IP. That's PU. Nobody cares about that stuff.
Oh, okay. Eve, if you don't take a clip of that and make that the excerpt for this, that's it. That's the excerpt.
Okay, I will, Dan.
That's amazing. It's not IP, it's PU. That's genius. And also, yes, oh my God, I'm obsessed. with that. And also IP doesn't necessarily mean like tried and true. Like there's interesting IP out there that's so different and unique that like it could be that. I mean, I will say that like it wouldn't hurt a writer to have a piece of IP in their portfolio. And IP, and to Chris's point too about Anne's poetry, it also doesn't mean like, okay, I'm going to write a script about Cleopatra because it's IP or it's, it's familiar. It's like, yes, there's been a million stories about Cleopatra. So it is about being able to decide like what's interesting IP, what haven't we heard before? What are some of the stories that are true in maybe a more contemporary backdrop, because period is hard to sell, that could be interesting. But yes, getting a book that nobody's heard of doesn't mean that you have IP. So many times writers will say, I wrote this script and now I'm going to write a book version because I want to make IP off of it and make an IP. And it's like, just because you wrote the book doesn't mean that's IP. It's like, you have to make sure there's a fan base. You have to make sure that, I mean, obviously get it published, make a fan base. There's so much more to it than just like, okay, I wrote a book, now I have IP. It's like, that's not what IP is.
100%.
Right.
So there's one question here that I actually, Will Kaiser, he asked, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but he's asking like, what is kind of the weight with shorts? If you write a short, does it carry any weight, basically? Sorry if I've
No.
messed it up, Will, but I think it's a
I
good
would
question.
say no.
The shorts are, yeah.
Yeah.
What? No.
That's the short
There is no
answer
weight.
to shorts. The short answer to shorts is no. Short films are really, really a medium for the filmmaker. So if you're going to direct it, it's a different story. But there's no true business for screenwriters who write shorts. So there isn't going to be a manager or an agent who's going to have any interest in that. Now, if you write a short and a rep sees that short and says, wow, that was well written, they might say, what feature length screenplays do you have? I would like to read those. So again, anything can serve as entree. That's for sure. In fact, there was just something in Deadline last week about a short that was that kind of led to the discovery of the filmmaker and stuff.
Oh yeah, it was like Darren Aronofsky. Was that it?
I think he bought it, right? I think he's going to produce it or direct it. So it wasn't his short. I mean, because it was his short, that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of my little spiel here. Because he's Darren Aronofsky. So, but yeah, look, shorts are phenomenal for lots of reasons, right? Especially if you're going to produce it. And so the learning curve on that is tremendous. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't write shorts, but don't think that a rep is going to be excited because you've written a short. Ultimately, it's features that sell. It's features where people make money. So shorts can serve perhaps some kind of purpose to position you in a particular place where people will ask to read your features. In a sense, it could be like a pitch.
Joey, I saw a Twitter post, actually. This just came to me when Chris mentioned it, that you watched a short recently and you were like, you got to watch this. Whatever it was, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, some short got your attention, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, it's called 98 Honda. It is, or Honda 98. Oh no, I'm never gonna find it. But I think it's called 98 Honda. It is so good, and I'm obsessed with it. Oh, I wish I could.
What makes it good, Joey?
I will tell you immediately. So there was one of our writers. Well, okay. Well, let me actually be a little more like general about it. So there was a screening at CAA, and it was promoting Black filmmakers, and there was 6 or 7 shorts, and they were all good. But this one short called Honda 98 was so funny, so interesting. There was a theme to it, but it wasn't heavy-handed. It was so well done. The actor was so good in it. And when it was over, I was mad. I was like, wait, I want to keep watching it because I could see the movie in it. It could go on for an hour and a half. Like it didn't feel like it needed to be a short. It was so well done and so funny that I was so engaged with the character that I was so drawn to the character and rooted for the character and was so intrigued by the character that when it was over, I felt like I was saying goodbye to a friend. And I just wanted to keep that friend around. So it was so good. But I will say, like, yeah, for a short script, Unless you want to direct to, I can't. I'm not getting calls from reps being like, I'm looking for a short script to consider signing somebody. But maybe that, that could be in your portfolio. For a short film, if you want to direct, then absolutely. One thing I'm seeing more and more of, of kind of the success of, are short stories. I think that's kind of an interesting market. I mean, Verve is like just selling short story after short story. And I feel like the big agencies are like really like, I think that's not uncharted territory, but maybe like how podcasts were huge a few years ago. I do think short stories are kind of having its moment now. But if you definitely should watch 98 Honda. If you could get your hands on it, it's so good.
Cool. I just wanted to bring a bit of different perspective because, as a consumer watching something, you loved it. But in the business, not carrying a lot of weight.
Let me just jump in, although I forgot what I was going to say, but it was going to change everybody's lives. That's why I moved. It was based on.
You already do with IPPU.
All right. Well, damn it. It just fell out of my head. But it was going to be really, really top-notch advice.
Oh, this better be good.
Yeah, I forgot it.
And now you forgot it. Great. That's my
maybe it'll dawn on me. And there were actually two things that I was going to say.
Oh my God! But now I'm really curious. Let me just make sure.
Okay, so guys, I want to ask you something. Is there anything? Okay, so this will be the last.
Oh, I remember. Wait.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I remember. Okay.
Wholeheartedly.
Okay. In regards to short stories, yeah, this is kind of a new phenomenon. And I can tell you that even the agents here look at short stories, and you know where they go to look at them? On Reddit. So this is a distribution venue for people now, that you can write a short story and put it up on Venue. And there are people in this industry who are combing places like that. And I don't know what all of those platforms are. A lot of what I'm seeing is that they tend to lean genre wise. So, like if you're writing a horror short stories, for example, I read a screenplay a couple of months ago that was based on a short story that was plucked from Reddit. And when I did that final draft contest lunch that I do every year, where I meet the winners of the Big Break contest, one of those winners has I believe it's a screenplay that's in production now that started life as a short story on Reddit.
Great. So another platform we have to engage with. I mean,
don't engage with Reddit. Don't engage with Reddit. Jesus Christ. But yeah. I mean, no, it's just a scary place. But yes, as a short story place, yeah.
Well, if there's a chance, I can see all of the writers here running off to Reddit, like after this call. Anyway, but that is good advice, because it's been lurking personally in my background as well. But it's a lot of work, because you got to work it. Yeah. But thanks for that.
And by the way, I'm sorry, but like a lot of these short stories, you know what they really are? They aren't even short stories. It's they basically read like the synopsis of a first act of a screenplay.
Okay.
I've read these short stories that are selling, and I'm like, okay, there's no like amazing, great, literary mellifluence, or skill, or like anything at all. And I'm like, this literally reads like a first act synopsis, but it's like a totally cool, interesting setup, and I'm hooked.
So you've obviously got a secret profile on Reddit, but no one ever uses their real name.
No, I don't think I've ever even been on Reddit, but when these things sell or these things are hitting the marketplace, I might take a look.
Oh, you're getting them secondhand. Okay, you tell us that story, then we'll believe you.
I don't get anything secondhand, Eve.
Guys, listen, we're running out of time, so I just want to say thank you so much. There's so many questions. I didn't even scratch the surface. Maybe I don't want to put Chris and
Why don't
Joey
you just
in a position.
just go ahead and, you know, and pick a few questions.
Okay, let's pick one or two here. There's so many.
Any question that we ask, you have to adopt a dog. So that's just the okay. So it's too late to take back your question.
Okay, so you guys can also see the questions. I'm just sure it's hard. Okay, let's do. Okay. So Tamsin says, I have autism, but only found out in my late 20s. I've been writing since I was 9, but I want to know if there's a place for females with autism, that I struggle with grammar and punctuation, but it doesn't take away from my writing. Yeah, so
Of
that's
course.
an
I mean,
interesting one.
When people ask, like, is there a place for like insert anything here? I mean, with very few exceptions, like, of course, there's room for everybody. And I think that, like, if you could write, you know, not, again, I'm not saying write memoirs, and I'm not suggesting that. And I think it's not really helpful for writers to write memoirs. But yeah, of course. I mean, I do think that, like, if there's like grammatical and punctuation errors that might kind of distract from the reading process, I think at that point you might want to just bring somebody on to proofread. It doesn't distract from the story. But yeah, of course, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Many years ago, I met, and it was not an easy meeting, a man named John. He has since passed away, but he lived in an iron lung. He lived in an iron lung, and he literally wrote scripts with, like, you know, a pointer on his head, you know, writing like that. And he sold a script. He sold one script. I want to say it was to Malcolm in the Middle, the TV series, of which they didn't use a script, but they used a story, and he got story credit. And I just remember thinking, like this guy, and you know, he was you know, his body was, like, you know, horribly atrophied, and but the guy was in a fucking iron lung, for God's sakes. And then it's like, you know, I meet these other writers who have all kinds of excuses as to why they can't write scripts or this or that, and I'm just like, you know, next, not interested.
Yeah.
And you know, but like, when I read a script, I don't know if the guy's in an iron lung. You know, I don't know if the writer has autism. I don't know if the writer's blind. I don't know anything. All I know is what's between fade in and fade out of 120 pages. That's all that I know. And and so I think that's what you need to be concerned about. First and foremost is your writing. The thing is that my experience has been that so many new writers are focused on everything else except the one thing that truly matters, which is their writing.
Yep.
They focus on everything that doesn't matter, because if it's not there in the script, all this other shit that you're concerned about doesn't matter anyway.
But it's going to be a natural thing for a writer.
Well, get over it.
The pitch.
Go to therapy. Get over it, you know?
I also want to say this too, about, like, going back to, like, the lead in of, like, what to do before the pitch. Just, this is somebody who is, I am gay, but, like, and now that with everything's so much more open now and, like, accepting, that I do see sometimes writers starting a pitch with, I am in the queer community and that what makes me different, and let me go into my pitch. Or I'm neurodivergent, that's what makes me different, let me go into my pitch, which is interesting. But I think because we're so open now and is accepting that more people are feeling comfortable to be in those communities, or to announce that they maybe have autism in their 20s or whatever, that you do have to be more specific than that. Being queer or being neurodivergent is not going to be the selling point. It's like, okay, so you're queer. How does that influence your writing? What's your perspective because you're queer or because you're neurodivergent? How does that shape your writing? It doesn't mean like every script that you write have to shape be shaped by that. But it is like, that's not enough now just to say that. It's like, okay, so what does that mean to your writing? What does that mean to your personal log line as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the one thing, and again, it's like nobody wants to hear this, but all of this talk about pitching and what makes a pitch good and what doesn't make a pitch good is that for me, it comes down to the story. And so it's like, if you don't get all the other things right, but the story is there, that's the only thing ultimately that I care about the most, because anything else you can figure out. But the reason that most pitches go sour is because the story that they tell doesn't work. That's why most pitches go sour, because the stories don't work. And never does that become more apparent than during a pitch. I can tell inside of 30 seconds of a pitch. I can tell from a log line if the screenplay works or not, just from the log line. I read a log line, I know right away if the script works or if it doesn't work. I don't have to read 120 pages. I've already read 60,000 scripts. So it's not like your script is going to elucidate me in some way that the other 60,000 scripts haven't. So I can just tell right off from your log line if the script works or doesn't work. And so it is truly that rudimentary. It all begins with the work. So do the work. I know you all think your script, the one thing you all have in common is that you all think your scripts are great. And I would say that the one thing that you really all have in common is that your scripts probably aren't that great.
That's why we love you, because you're so honest.
and so that's where you need to be working at putting all of your energy and all of your concern into becoming the absolute best writer that you can be.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this too. We're gonna stay on and answer questions. This oatmeal has been calling my name for the past 20 minutes. So I'm gonna shut my camera off because when I eat, it's disturbing, but I'm listening and I will answer the questions. But let me just.
Nobody wants to see anybody eat oatmeal.
Nobody wants, not especially
with your camera off and eat your oatmeal.
Okay, let's keep going. But I am listening.
Okay. So let's choose another question here. Okay. So Joey, are you able to talk or not?
Yeah.
Talk, yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is a question that comes up a lot, and let's just ask it again. How long do we give for someone to get back if they have requested the script?
So I would say after 4 weeks, respond to the email where you sent the script and say, hey, hope you're well. Just wanted to see if you had a chance to read my script. That is, in my opinion, that's the only time you're going to follow up with them, actually asking if they read your script. Okay. After that, maybe a month later, 4 weeks. After that, make it about them. Again, it's about building relationships. There's a chance they may never read your script, but if they want to build a relationship, that's great. So the second time you'll reach out to them, maybe 2 to 4 weeks after that, email them, oh, I just saw you in Deadline, or I just saw a movie that your client did, or I just remember a piece of feedback you gave me. It was amazing and it helped me shape my next script. 9 times out of 10, they will respond to that because you made it about them. And Chris said before, it's a two-way street. It's not, there's no exec walking around being like, oh my God, there's a lack of scripts. I need scripts. Somebody give me scripts. There's so many scripts. So for you to stand ahead of the crowd is like, how do you like separate yourself from all the writers just trying to shove pitches down Chris's throat and being like, I just want to build a relationship. I want to like, not just, but like, I want to like build a relationship and maybe down the road we could work together, and creating that ease with the exec to be like, oh, this is somebody that's not just going to be shoving pitches down my throat, but somebody who actually cares. And now I trust them that they would be better in a room if I refer them to somebody and they're not going to embarrass me. So after that, follow up and make it about them. And just know that you will be ghosted. A lot of times you will be ghosted and you'll never hear back from the exec again. Or maybe like years go by and then then maybe they'll resurface in one way, shape, or another. That's totally fine. You will be ghosted often. You will be ghosted even when you thought the exec loved you and loved the idea of the script, and you never hear from them again. That's very common. And I do think it's because, and I've been on the receiving end of this too, is when an exec says, okay, this, if I say like, okay, the script, I don't know if it's ready, because you want to like close the loop, then you get the emails back. Well, why isn't it ready? Well, you're an idiot. All this stuff. Well, can I send you this? Can I send you this? And it's like, I should have just like kind of kept it vague and open-ended, because now I invited a conversation when in fact I was like, okay, this isn't, I don't want to pursue this right now. So I thought I was doing the nice thing by closing the loop, but now I've opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah. And okay.
But follow-up is really important. Follow-up is important. You must follow up. You have to follow up. I can't tell you how many times somebody sends me a script and I have full intention of reading it, but I just get busy and it's in an email and I'm getting, hundreds of emails a day, and that email gets pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's out of sight, out of mind, and I forget. And so getting that follow-up, I'm like, oops, I forgot. And I try to always communicate and say, I'm really busy right now. It's probably going to be 3 weeks. Reach out to me, in May or this or that. So I personally try to be specific about that. But just very quickly, I told this story in the Inside Pitch recently. I used to work at ICM, and when I was moving offices from Beverly Hills to Century City, we were cleaning everything out. And I found a script back in the hard copy days that had fallen behind my desk, and it had a cover letter on it, and it's like, here's my script, really looking forward to hearing from you soon. And I looked at the date. It was from 7 years ago. The script had fallen behind my desk 7 years earlier and just sat there collecting dust. And clearly the writer never followed up, because if they had, I would have looked around for the script and said, gee, I don't have it. Can you send me another?
Did you read it when you found it?
Fuck no. 7 years, come on. Statute of limitations.
I thought the story was going to end with you reading the script and like this amazing thing happened. But okay.
What do you think? This is Hollywood?
Okay, guys, we're going on to like half an hour extra. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up. I just want to ask you, both of you, maybe if you can just spend 30 seconds speaking about your thoughts on Screenwriter Safari, if you want.
Okay, let me just say this.
I see some oatmeal though.
No, that's
no,
a pimple.
Robert, don't distract him.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
If you're not eating oatmeal in the morning, you're not doing it right, by the way.
By the way, I hear that oatmeal is actually bullshit food. That's what I hear. Yeah, I read a great big article on it, that it's kind of bullshit and that isn't natural.
That's not true at all.
I don't know if that's true, but whatever.
It's not true, and I want that reporter's name and number.
Hey, Stephanie Kahn is here. Hey, Stephanie.
Okay, so listen to me carefully. I hate one thing more than anything in the world, and that's flying. I hate flying. I hate flying. I hate flying. But nothing in Africa is very far away from LA. I went the first time, and I'm going again because even though it's 20 plus hours of flying, because I'm so obsessed with it. It is you step out of your comfort zone, you're inspired, you're surrounded by people that are just so, that want it really bad, that are passionate, that want to learn. The mentors, I mean, are amazing. They're so inspiring, and it's you're literally hearing pitches, and all of a sudden there's like a giraffe behind you. Like, it's just the most mind-boggling, amazing thing in the world. And you leave not only like building such a strong relationship with everybody there, but being like, there's so much more to life than just sitting in your house or in your apartment writing a script. And it really does like fuel your creative juices to be like, there's more to life, and it opens up your horizons. And it's really, really fantastic, and it's beautiful, and it's moving. And Eve is so organized that from the second the plane lands, even before, there's like everything is planned out, every second by second, hour by hour, and it's just the most miraculous experience. And if you could go, I highly suggest you go. It's amazing.
Thanks,
I
Joey.
I went in the inaugural year, so one might expect lots of snafus because this was all new for Eve, and it couldn't have gone any smoother. I'm a little bit like Joey. I don't have a fear of flying, but I just like, I hate to travel. Like, I like to be places, but I hate to travel. And I think probably a lot of people feel that way. Like, if we had a Star Trek transporter, I would go everywhere. Um, but I have to say that, and sometimes, and yeah, I don't want to get corny, but like the experience almost makes me want to cry sometimes. It was such a sublime experience. It was so stunning. And while we worked really hard there, because Eve works the writers hard, and the mentors are really working with the writers, and it was a wonderful experience, not just bonding with nature, but also bonding with the writers. Like one of my mentees was Suzanne, and we're like really good buds now. We talk all the time on the phone. We have literally like 15, 16-hour phone conversations. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. But there's all the obvious stuff, like the animals and the spiders and maybe some of the mosquitoes. Although I didn't get one bite, not one mosquito bite. Not one mosquito bite. It was amazing. But I got to tell you, getting up in the morning, the sun's rising, you're like out there on safari. Eve, you really gave me truly one of the most memorable, special experiences of my life. And and something, I'm going to be honest. Eve, I'm going to be honest. I actually ended up having to pay for quite a bit of this experience, right? It wasn't supposed to. It's not the way it was supposed to turn out, because I'm going there to fucking work, and I'm paying. It was worth every penny. First of all, I never would have even have gone there, right? If it hadn't been for this. All I can say is that if you're a writer, and look, it is a very large investment for a lot of people, but it is an investment. You're going out there. Just putting Africa aside, you are working with great people. Imagine, like, having dinner with Meg LaFauve, the Oscar-nominated screenwriter. You're having dinner with these people. And it's like you become family. I mean, I can't even explain it. And remember, I wasn't on the side of the writers. I was on the other side of it. And I know that all the writers felt the same way. It's really an amazing experience. And Eve truly is the hostess with the mostest.
I want to say thank you to the likes of you guys. You guys make it special. The writers make it special.
Yeah, even though, by the way, folks, I haven't been invited back. She pushed me out for Joey. Right. It's all about Joey.
He's got your place. He's got your place. Good. Not true. Anyway, there's a whole lot of variables that come into that. But yeah. I absolutely adore all of you that come, and I'm very, very grateful because you've all made it like super amazing. So if anyone can and wants to come, I've got 3 spots left. And guys, I want to tell you, I am not doing this again. It is I can never say never, or no one can never say never, but for various reasons. But I've got 3 spots left if you want to come. That's all I'm going to say.
Go.
It really is not, you can't even put it into words. And Chris, if I ever saw you crying, I wouldn't even know how to digest it. I would just walk into the abyss and never be seen again. I'm
Joey, I'm half Italian. That's all we do is cry.
Oh, that's true. Okay, that makes sense
We're
then. Okay.
big criers.
I will also
Okay, well, speaking of crying, I think that like happy cry, so that's amazing. I think let's end it there. It's an hour and a half, and thank you so much, Chris and Joey, and for all of you who've stayed on and come onto this webinar. I can't wait to go read all the comments and the questions. I couldn't see everything. There was just so much. So yeah, I'll say goodbye, and I've got a little video that I'm going to play as my last thing for a bit of inspiration.
Oh, I love that.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
We all have dreams that present themselves differently
I'm going to share my
at different
screen.
times.
Oh,
Every single one of us is creative and curious by nature. Some of us are more curious about nature. We all have dreams that present themselves differently at different times. Every single one of us is creative and curious by nature.
Oh my gosh.
Some of us are more curious about nature, opportunities, and our own boundless ability to write perfectly well.
I don't know what's going on here, guys. Just wait. There's like a million things playing here, and I can't stop it.
Or are you likely to speak of your regrets?
Close all the YouTubes except for one.
South Africa.
I can't move this to close it. Oh, there, I can. Okay.
I'll leave you with these words.
Should we maybe try that one more time for anyone
Let's start it again. It's worth it.
particularly interested? Okay.
I'm interested.
Okay. Is it sharing? Is my screen sharing?
Yes,
Okay.
I can see it.
Okay, cool.
We all have dreams that present themselves differently at different times. Every single one of us is creative and curious by nature. Some of us are more curious about nature and our own boundless abilities to write and be creative. There is no sure thing in life, but the only one we have can be lived to the max with the means, opportunities, and talents we have, or it can go by perfectly well, living cautiously. Do you want to be the person that has lived a creative journey that will regale stories of your experiences in old age, or are you likely to speak of your regrets? I know that coming to Screenwriters Safari in South Africa presents growth and learning in a very special place, in a very special way. I'll leave you with these words that jumped out at me from the beautiful book, Be Water, My Friend. The saying is, unclutter your thoughts and emotions and make space for something you haven't considered before. Keep flowing, my friends.
I wrote this in a little cheetah shirt too.
Trying to end it. Just hang on.
That just gave me nice flashbacks. I loved it.
Hang on. Now YouTube's going off its tip here.
Such an amazing experience.
Just hang on.
I would love if the next video is a video that Eve was watching before, like a heavy metal mosh pit, like the other side of Eve. I'd be like, oh, so there's the other side.
The three faces. The three faces of Eve.
Yeah. So that was just a thought I wanted to leave everyone with.
Well,
are we off or are we on?
We're going. I'm gonna stop the recording and say goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for
bye, Chris. Bye, Eve. Bye,
hey, and come visit me at the Inside Pitch on Facebook.
Yes, and go to Roadmap Writers, please, guys. There's
and
so
adopt
much
a dog.
going.
All the things.
Thank you.
All right,
okay.
bye, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye.